Welcome back to the Unpopular Opinion, Becoming Popular. My name is Yana the Heretic, and we are going to be discussing an entirely new quarter that has started on August 5th and will be prevalent in our lives for the next 4 months. The theme is going to be relationships and duality. And we start out with gate 7, which is on the cross of the Sphinx, as well as starting in Thoth, our archetype Thoth. And that is an extremely Mercurian energy, which is very highly prevalent in my personal life. As you can tell, there is some Egyptian art going on. We just came out of Maat, which is Thoth's wife. She was the one that was weighing your heart in the afterlife and seeing if your soul is worthy to move forward, to see if your heart has actual justice and love and empathy and, kindness. All of these really great things for souls to have, to continue forward. If you have excessive greed or anger and malice, you would be eradicated and thrown into the pit of the artificer. So we came from law, Maat is all about law, to her husband Thoth, who is the Mercurian influence in our lives, really. He is the messenger. We hear his name a lot as Hermes Trismegistus, Hermes Thrice Great, or even Metatron. So this is the energy of somebody that can communicate in order to heal, to solve war. There's a lot of balancing good and evil as well, but it is with language, it is with treaties, it is with petitions, contracts, whatever it may be, to know where the boundaries lie. You cannot cross this boundary because we have these guidelines for how to live in peace. And he was a scribe, a sacred scribe in Egypt in the past. And to ease tension and war in the world, he's associated with the moon and the subconscious realm, and is very light and dark in its symbolism, because the moon is light, but it is also related to lunacy and the unconscious within us and the unconscious realm, which is considered to also be feminine. Our moon cycles are so related to the moon and to the wave patterns and to the gravitational pull, which can also create a lot of lunacy. We get extremely, and this goes for men and women, we're extremely capable of being lunatics. It doesn't really matter. We're constantly within ourselves balancing the light and dark, the angels, the demons, the rational and irrational, the scientific and the spiritual. We're balancing the feminine and masculine components of who we are. And there's a lot of lunacy within it, because sometimes we get extremely high pressure or anger, or very human, right? We have a lot of emotions as human beings, and it plays out with excessive hormonal play. And how do we personally decay into lunacy? This is related so much in our relationships within ourselves as well as relationships with others. If you look at the feminine and masculine energy, there's love songs that are just so deep. Most of music is honestly love songs. It's your lover driving you fucking crazy, and all the pain that you're left with when these people leave, or how it changes you. Poetry, all these things are all within gate 7. Gate 7 is the role of the self in interaction, and it is the army. So we're looking at all these dynamics where it's the feminine, which, this is outside of specifically gender roles. This is, feminine energy is prevalent in men, women, and beyond, and so is masculine energy. So the symbolic versions, we have the vessel and the dagger, right? So the vessel is the receiver of energy. It contains usually water, and water is emotion. Water is nurturing. It is quenching. It is deep. And that's what we're really talking about here, is who is the caregiver, the nurturer, the emotional, sympathetic, or empathetic being, and who is the dagger, which is extremely logical. Maybe they pay all the bills. Maybe they know how to direct energy. They are extremely dedicated and determined and hit the mark. They have the checks and balances all calculated and corrected, or they want the factual evidence. So we see these dynamics play out in the world, and it doesn't matter which gender you are, or whatever label you carry, you still are balancing these energies. And that is really what the role of the self is about. Gate 7 is in the G center. It's the identity. And we talked a little about Gate 7 a couple weeks ago in Maat, because Gate 31 is its counterpart, which is in the throat. And Gate 31 is the gate of leadership. And this is a different type of leader, Gate 7. Gate 7 is a leader that believes they can lead, but they have to be elected, like in a democracy. They can't just assume the role, even though they usually want to, or they feel like they deserve to. And unfortunately, especially if they don't have Gate 31, they cannot really reach the masses as a leader. Gate 31 is really what ignites the channel of the alpha, a design of leadership for good or bad. So we see a ton of that happening right now. We see a lot of leaders in our democracy, so they say, that are guiding us to have a very separatist kind of feeling to, this world is a lot more isolated than we think. People feel that they're alone, and the leaders that we have, I wouldn't say are necessarily guiding us towards anything that is a cohesion of delight or energy. So just because they're leaders doesn't mean they're always right, but we are seeing this channel of the alpha really play out. And like I said, the 7 is on the cross of the Sphinx, and the cross of the Sphinx is extremely powerful. Every single person that is on this cross is headstrong, I would say. It's very defining, and it sustains the entire Rave Mandala. It is the form. It is the form, or the skeleton, I would say, of human design, where it's erected and it lasts for a really long time. It really highlights where these quarters boundaries are. So, gate 7 is the perfect slice of pie here for the beginning of the quarter of duality, because it really is allowing you to see what role you play. Are you more of the feminine role or the masculine role? And you're gauging that. You're like, okay, well, I nurture the kids, but I do some of the bills, or I sage and smudge and clean the house, and my partner pays the bills. Or where are these nurturing and caregiving and logical realms really within yourself, and where are they not? And we're all subject to change, right? We just came out of form, and now we're playing with these feminine and masculine roles. And when you're in any type of partnership, it doesn't matter if it's physical, if it's a relationship that is intimate, or if it's a partnership just in business or in a vision. You really have to know the people really well in order to have a partnership, or you begin to. And a lot of that comes with its trial and error, and you see people for their, who they really are, for their real, what's the word? You see all of their qualities, whether that's anger or love. You see how deep it goes within your vision, whether it's, I want this beautiful home, and I want these children, and I want this, and this. Or if you want to foresee like a life vision where, you're solving world problems, you're helping fundraise, you have a business that is really of value, and you want to sustain this business. You see the dark and light in your partners all the time, because maybe they get extremely stressed out doing certain things, and maybe they get sick, or they need to take a vacation. And it really you see and desire to see your partnerships to be able to take on these other roles while you're gone, while you need a break, or you need somebody to fill in the gaps for this chemical reaction to sustain your business or your worlds. So we seek this within, we seek this balance within our partnerships. And we're going to keep seeing a lot more collective and tribal gates. There's only a couple gates that are individual, and that is gate 57, which is part of the splenic integration channels. And then we see gate 28, which is the gate of the game player. And I think that is truly because when you're in this duality, it's two, right? It's not individual. It's more so two roles that are happening and playing out. And it's hard to be purely individual and have other people understand you that are tribal and collective, because you're the one that sticks out, right? You're the interesting, like very profound, self-eradicated being. You don't really need that much influence. So individuals, unless like they're in relationships with other individuals, it may be a little bit harder to know what you're about, or why you're not needing as many people in your life, or you're not as influenced by other people. So you get to see these things play out in your relationships, whether it's with tribal, collective, or individual. And we are definitely going to see a lot of things shift, where the roles of females in the early 2000s or the 90s or whatnot, we're like really starting to shift out of this patriarchy. We're really starting to see gender roles play out differently in all types of couples. There's the provider, and then there's the person that takes care of the house, but realistically, we're even shifting out of that, and it's strange times, and we're really finally getting to this place where a lot of these old rituals and traditions are going to start to melt away, and I believe that I understand that extremely well, because I am a 5 profile first, which is the heretic, and I have 731 as well. And 7 is like all about new leadership. It's all about the future, and it's starting to shake some fucking plates. Some old ass plates, that we've been sitting on in this like foundation that is starting to break up, and we're seeing a lot more magma and creating new grounds for play, for roles, for more and more interactions and chemical reactions between folks. And erecting something new for the future generations. So specifically this week, we do have the entire channel of the Alpha, and we're seeing these leaders come together. So whether it's politics or businesses, this is the week where things are starting to really, there's a lot of ideas bubbling, from these leaders. So I wish for the best, for everyone to come together and it be divine timing, and to create the army, right? The legion. So on top of that, we're seeing some really interesting energies. We just had the full moon in our zodiac of Leo. We're in the sign of Leo in our sun, and the moon is Aquarius. So, we're seeing this like leadership, month, the sun at its zenith, the heat, the Leos, the pride, those people that know their role, that are comfortable in the limelight and want attention and want to be heard. They're some of the most like prideful, like exalted beings, Leos, they want to be seen. And Aquarius is all about the future, it's all about being pretty weird, and then your weirdness is just the new innovations. And yeah, it's exactly all formatted to this time frame. Yeah. We also have the Chiron retrograde. let's talk about that a little bit. So on top of like Leo season and the Aquarius full moon, which was pretty heavy for me. I don't know why, but I do and I don't, right? But, you know, we had a lot of planets still retrograding, and Chiron is one of them, which is the wounded healer. And Chiron is also about communication. So for the next 6 months, around January, I think it's like 2nd or 6th, we're gonna be seeing like these old wounds play out in a better way, though, because Chiron retrograde is about using these wounds as fuel, being able to see them and to actually therefore create something new from them. And a lot of people, I believe, you know, this like collective energy is like, okay, like this shit is so fucking outdated and it's so old and it's still here, but I'm finally really like just setting this down and really like using it to the benefit of my mastery. And so it's equally a tough period of time for those people that are highly attuned, you know, that are highly adjusted to the rhythms, those, you know, that are seeking more awareness, that are piercing the veil. They're starting to really feel it, you know. They're like, oh shit, you know, this stuff really did happen, and I'm looking at it now and I'm like ready to like use it for everyone's benefit, not just my own. So yeah, changing this betrayal and really like blank slating it, which is something I say a lot, because just because somebody else hurt you, you know, whether it be in your relationship, right? You know, usually we get hurt the most in our intimate relationships with somebody else, and you are starting to really reason with it. And just because you saw this quality in this one person, and you tend to attract people that are similar to you, doesn't mean that that person is going to be exactly the same as the other one before that. And you have to really like let that sit and understand that everyone is so extremely different from one another, and they're going to deal with problems and tension and stress way differently, and just really be okay with that. So how can you really obtain this alpha energy? How do you really sit with it, use it to your benefit? You're gonna have to know some of your fucking ugliest, darkest components, the darkest minerals that form, you know, your I would say skeleton, you know, because we have this dark and light aspect, which is all in us, and the blinding white clarity, right? Some periods of time are meant for having a lot of play and being in the external world and not doing as much work. And then we come back to these periods of time that are slower, and then we start to build clarity out of the things that have happened to us in the external world. So how are you going to really use that as your alpha foundation, and really obtain this like essence of leadership? You have to know and integrate both aspects, the light and the dark, the internal and the external. in order to really not waver in your voice. Because if you're really not sure, your voice is going to be drowned out by somebody that is sure. And until you get there, which is an extremely, it's a great process, but it takes time. And that's all right, you know? So, welcome you into Thoth energy. The questions of the week. In which ways are you feminine? Soft, nurturing, sensitive, empathetic? And which ways are you masculine? Logical, determined, and headstrong? Do you find your role to be fixed? Or is it mutable and adaptable to change? What type of energy or frequency do you need right now that'll help balance you? Maybe you need some more masculine in your life, which, like, you know, individually being able to pay your bills and be responsible and be accountable. Or do you need more nurturance and more love and more acceptance and an open heart? How do you feel balance within yourself? And how do you balance these energies within yourself? Is it a practice that you're aware of? And thank you for watching. I will definitely shoot out the next gate very soon. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and let me know what you think in the comments section. Thank you.